Hey guys, in this episode I want to go over the process of retopologizing your ZBrush sculpt in Maya and bringing it back to ZBrush. So I have a quick sketch I made of just a dragon head in ZBrush, and it started from a sphere. So the topology is not very good. You can see if I zoom in, like where the little spikes come in, the topology is not great, so I'm going to just go down in resolution. You can see what happens when I go down really low. Basically it disappears. So what I want to do is I want to make some good topology that I can then bring into ZBrush and continue my sculpt and add more detail. And I also want to have UVs, so if I want a texture, I'll be ready for that as well. So the process is pretty simple and pretty straightforward. So I'm going to have selected the subtool. Before you export, you want to go into the export section of the tool drop down here, and then turn off group export subgroups. Otherwise, if you have any polygroups, which we don't have here, but if you did, they would export separately as separate objects or separate shells. So we can just click export, and I'm going to go into, let's see, into my projects folder, and I'll put it inside data. Like that. So back in Maya, I'm going to go and import the OBJ, and you can see it's pretty large, 217 megabytes, so it's going to be pretty heavy, but there's a way to speed this up. Okay, so there it is. It's also upside down, but I'm not going to fix that. But you can see it's really dense and it's a little slow. So what I want to do is I want to make it kind of a little easier to use in Maya. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to cache, GPU cache, and export selection. Make sure you set this to current frame, and I'm going to put this in Dragon Cache Alembic. I'm going to call this Dragon Head GPU, and that just stands for Graphic Processing Unit, and this will export this geometry as a GPU cache. So when I make a new scene, go back to cache, GPU cache, import, and we have our Dragon Head GPU. I'm going to import it back in, and now you can see by this little icon here, this is a GPU cache, so it loads directly into your video card, into the video card memory, and should be much faster to work with. You can see I'm getting 125 frames per second down here, and then when I select it, it's still really fast, even though it's displaying all these polygons. Now we're ready to retopologize, and the process is super simple in Maya, and that's what's great about this. By the way, make sure you get Maya 2016 extension 2. It's now available as a student download as well, and what's great about this is that they have symmetry for the tool that we're going to use, which is Quad Draw. So I'm going to make this live, then I'm going to open the toolbox here, and in the toolbox I'm going to turn on Quad Draw, and symmetry now works. So when I start clicking, you can see I have symmetry that I can now use, which we couldn't use before with Maya 2016. And the process here is super simple in Maya compared to other packages, and the way you do it is you just basically click to make points like this. If I hold shift, it will and left click, this will make a face. Now with symmetry on, you really can't see the center line, so you just have to find it like this. And then for this kind of stuff, this is pretty simple. I'm not going to make a lot of detail here, because if I do, it's gonna be really hard. So instead, I'm just gonna click here and here, like that, and then like this, like that. And I'm just gonna make 8 points. And you can middle click and drag, and you can move the points around. Like that. Looks good. And then we'll make one on the inside, same way. and then I'm going to put a point in the middle and just make a square like this. So if you mess up, just undo. Now we can also add loops. So if I hold Control, I can just mouse over and drag and then click, and it'll make a loop and it'll stick to the surface. Now the other thing you can do is you can select this object and add it to a layer. So I'm gonna just come back in here, make a layer, and that way I can hide and unhide this. That way I can see what I'm making, and you can see there it is. I can bring this back. Now to enter Quadro again, all you have to do is select the new geometry. I'm just going to clear history, but you don't have to. And then come back into the modeling toolkit and click Quadro again. And now it becomes a Quadro object as well. Now just make sure you have live set on the GPU cache. So we can add a loop here and there, and then you can also drag. So I can move these points and, you know, make the geometry that I want it. So let's see. Okay. So you can see the process is pretty simple. It's pretty quick. I think it's much quicker than doing it in ZBrush using the Z-sphere retopology method. So I'm going to go through and retopologize this head, and then I'll show you how to bring it back into ZBrush and how to reproject our detail. Okay guys, so the next thing to do is to just create some UVs, and the simplest way to start is just to create a planar map. So you can go into UV, and here you can find a planar map, or it's also this icon here in your shelf. So I'm going to click it. It's going to just make a projection. If we open up our UV texture editor, let's bring it down here, you can see what it's going to look like. If we zoom out, you can see that it's overlapping because it's just a single projection, so red is backwards and blue is forward. And what I did was I pressed this button to activate shaded view. So the next thing we need to do is just to create some cuts. So I'm gonna select this edge loop here, and then I'm gonna go into select and click contiguous edges like that, and this will go through and find all the edges that are lined up in the direction that you set in the contiguous edges option. So there. So that looks pretty good. That's around the mouth, and we'll split the top and bottom in half. That should be a pretty good UV map for this. And then back in here, by default this is hidden. If you open this up, this little section here, there's a button here or icon called separate UVs along selected edges. You can click that, and that will cut the UVs. Or you can also go to polygons and click cut UV edges. I'm sorry, I think it's split UVs. There we go. One of those. Now, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on UV, and just select one of the UVs, and then hold Control right click to shell. So hold Control right click and then drag to shell. That will select one of the shells that you've selected, and then you can just move it over. And you see this one is red because it's flipped, so I'm going to press this button, flip like that, and that's about it. And next thing we need to do is just lay this out. And I'm going to go into unfold, open the options for unfold. I'm going to reset, show you the default settings, which are just this. Now if you don't see this unfold 3D, it might be because one of the plugins for it is turned off. So go to Windows, Settings Preferences, Plugin Manager, and then scroll down to Unfold 3D. Make sure this plugin is turned on and set to auto load. And that's about it. I'm going to click apply. You can set pixel size. Basically this will give you how many pixels you want outside of the UV space for texturing. 1024 is fine. Click apply. There we go. You can see it spread this out nicely, and if we turn this button on, this will show us any stretching, and the only stretching is around the nose and inside little horn holes, and that's perfect. It doesn't really matter because they're going to be hidden, so that's good. The eyes are okay, so this looks pretty good. And yeah, all we have to do now is just align it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to align it on two shells, two tiles. So like this, and I'm scaling it so that the largest one, you want to scale both together, so the largest one fills in the tile like that, and then this goes here, and then just place it in the middle like that. So that's the bottom and that's the top. There, and then we can also flip and flip like that, just so that it's facing the same direction. There, that's good. Turn that off. Okay, so that's ready. And the other thing I'm going to do is just check checkerboard. So in here you can turn this on, and this will show you a checker pattern. Now sometimes, for me at least, when I see the wireframe, it gets in the way. So just go into show and turn off selection highlighting. Now you'll be able to see, and press Q to get rid of the manipulator. You'll be able to see your the checker pattern without your lines obstructing it. And you can see that looks pretty good. Okay, so let's turn this back on. Close this, and then I'm gonna clear history. Shift Alt D, and that's good. Now we can export the file. Export selection. to data. You can set everything off for OBJ export. You don't need it, and we'll call this, I already have a version pre-saved, so let's do that again. Okay, now we can go into ZBrush. Now the thing with ZBrush, if I import the tool back in, what's going to happen is it's going to get the scale is going to be wrong. So there's a couple of different, there's a different way you have to do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to export the tool. So the way I've been saving before is using File and Save As and saving the ZBrush project. But when I import this back in, it's not going to be lined up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to export or save this tool, so Save As, and into Drag and Data, and save it as a ZTL. Yep. I'm going to close and then reopen ZBrush, and then I'm going to click Import, and I'm going to go into here and import the UV'd head. Like that. And then I'm going to load the tool. And then in here, I'm going to go to Subtools and click Append, and then append the UV'd head, which is right here. And now you can see it's lined up. Oops. So I'm going to select this head down here. I'm going to use this button just to move it up above the sculpted head, and then I want the head, that's the UV'd head, above that. I'm going to turn off the horns here, and the next thing we need to do is just to double check we have our UVs are still working. So UV map, morph, you can see there it is. And just because it's overlapping, don't worry about that. That's because this section here doesn't support UDIM, but ZBrush does support UDIM or multi-tile UV layout. Alright, now back in Subtools, I'm going to click Control D just to subdivide, bring this back, and then I'm going to go into Project. I'm going to set this, I think, 0.4, 0.04 or 0.05 should work, okay, and click Project. And if I hide this, you can see it's projecting pretty well. So I'm going to subdivide again, Control D, and then project again, subdivide again, project again. Now you can of course subdivide all the way to what you want and project, but sometimes you get flipping issues because the detail, when your detail is too low on the low res and you start projecting right away, it's going to project, like things like this around the eye can flip over. So that should be fine. And then maybe one more time and then project all. Okay, so let's take a look. So you can see it looks pretty good. We have a lot of detail here. I think we have a little more on this one than that one, yeah. So I can do one more subdivision and then one more projection. Okay, and there it is. So we look at the wireframe, you can see it looks pretty good around there, and we can always go down in resolution and see our low res. Okay. Alright, so this is ready for texturing and more sculpting detail. You can keep this previous geo, or you can just delete it. So click in here, click delete. Yep. And continue working. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please subscribe and hit the like button. Thanks for watching.